In Florida, the governor signed a law that said they no longer needed a full 12 jurors to come back with a recommendation for death. We saw it in the Parkland school shooter case where the jury was split, and even though a majority wanted the death penalty for Nicholas Cruz, because there were 2 or 3 people who did not, he was given life in prison. So after the outrage, that law was changed. How do you feel about this decision by the courts in Florida?
Well, it sounds like the courts in Florida and the governor wanted to make it easier for the imposition of the death penalty. And they did that by making the unanimity requirement no longer. So it just seems like this was a way for them to, in certain cases when they felt it was necessary, have the death penalty instituted in a much easier fashion than previously.
There may be an appeal on that issue in this case because he committed his crime in 1990. He was charged in 2016, so the unanimity requirement was in place at that time. So his attorneys may bring that up on appeal. Do you think they'll be successful in arguing, because this is a new law, so it may be open to some changes once we get other courts to review it?
Well, I expect them to appeal not just this issue, but a bunch of other issues that they think were germane to his conviction. And they may have a good argument that since the crime was committed in 1990, the unanimity requirement should apply. So it's worth an argument. It's worth a shot, given that he's probably going to get the death penalty. So usually in an appeal, they'll throw everything against the wall and hope something sticks.
Now, the judge in this case ruled that it's procedural, so it didn't need to be applied in a retroactive manner, or it wasn't necessarily the law at the time that had to apply because it only applied to the procedure. But I do want to play some emotional sound from the mother of the victim, Jan Cornell. She testified 2 times, both in the guilt phase and the penalty phase. Take a listen.
But we've lived in fear. We've lived in sadness. We miss them both. My daughter, Jeannie, Robin's sister, has never talked about it for 33 years until she came into this courtroom and she saw everything about that day unfold. And she didn't do well with it. She ended up in the emergency room the other night.
Wow. Lateef, can you just speak to how difficult this has been for the victims holding out for justice until now, 33 years later?
I'm sure it's been gut-wrenching. I'm sure it's been hard. I'm sure it's been nerve-wracking, especially in a case like this where loved ones are murdered and you don't really know who did it for 30 years. And then when you finally, 30-something years later, are brought to figure out who did it, it's just tough. It's tough. I'm sure they think about the victims every day. I'm sure the mother has thought about what she could have done to stop it. So I'm sure the whole family has been grieving a lot, especially lately now that it's been, I guess, brought up again by virtue of the fact that they finally found the perpetrator. So I'm sure the family just has been dealing with it and trying to maintain for the last 30 plus years.
In Florida, procedurally, they have a Spencer hearing where the defense can bring up anything else they want to try and save his life and change the judge's mind, and then the judge will actually rule in that sentencing. We only have a couple seconds left, Lateef, but any thoughts as to whether the judge might change his mind, or you think he's gonna follow what the jury has recommended?
He'll probably follow what the jury recommended, but it'll be on the defense to put forth mitigating factors to humanize Mr. Zeeler so that he doesn't get the death penalty.
Lateef Gray, thank you so much for all of your insight and analysis this hour. We'll see you soon again. Don't go anywhere. We have much more ahead.